positive. Is it on?
It is on. And look, there's chat.
Yay!
Can you see it from there?
Yes, I can. Yes, I
We're
can.
back.
Hi. I know it's been like a month, maybe not a month, but we had a lot going on. If those of you are friends with me on Facebook, you've probably seen my little dog had a massively intense surgery. So that's why last week we were out. I was home, literally waiting on him hand and foot. Before that, we had, I think you were out of town.
Yes.
There's just a lot happening.
I was out of town.
But we are back in action, and it's my birthday week. So be careful where you're heading because roads might be closed in honor of my birthday.
Yeah, it's hard for me to sleep the night before her birthday.
Which is August 1st. So...
And then getting to her house through all the parades is always a challenge. And the flyovers. There's a lot going on for your birthday.
This was my first
Look how much of this...
gift. My fiance got that for me for my birthday. It's my Gruber dog. Don't make scary symbols.
How come look how bulk wise how much of the screen I take up, and you're like this little like from here
I'm not very big.
Over there's like this solid wall of black. And then from this side over there's like, man, you could fit 3 more people over there.
I'm like the size of your average 11-year-old, I think.
The size of my leg.
But you also have a big fleece on, and I have a scant white t-shirt.
Yeah, aren't you cold?
No, I've been pretty animated since I've been here. I can see your green dinosaur in the background.
That was for my birthday.
Yes.
Just got me a pinata.
I love pinatas.
Right there.
We were going for whimsy.
I love that brontosaurus too. It was from the Dunlop.
Mm-hmm.
Dunlop Fuel. They used to Dunlap, I forget. But it used to be their logo. And there's a little chickadee on top of it.
That's like our bird. We've always been bird lovers and bird watchers, and like Saturday mornings when I was little, Dad and I would go out and bird watch, and black-capped chickadees were one of our favorites. So I found that little chickadee.
Oh, and there's a cardinal and a blue jay. I got birds everywhere.
And Gruber.
Geets. He's handsome.
I gave him a self haircut today, like by myself, and it kind of had the effect of like when I was little and I'd cut my Barbie's hair, like very much the same effect.
It was Blocko.
He's got like a block Lego head now, but
look at that. We have a bird over there. A new Smyrna Beach. Pelican. I can't wait to go to the beach.
I know. I'm ready. I am so excited. I'll be going in about a week and a half to a
September,
beach.
2.5 months. You get to go in 1 week.
Yeah. I know. We'll have to do a remote live stream again, I think, when I'm overseas.
Doesn't seem likely.
I know.
Okay, we'll try. Well, today's topic is God good?
I know. I'm excited about this one.
And for those who it's been a minute since you've seen this, or maybe it's the first time, we had been super consistent for the first part of the year, every Wednesday at 5 to 6, just a low-key place on the internet that you can come and hang out on a live stream on YouTube. And if you're in the process of questioning your Christian faith, or have doubts or struggling with that, and you've had questions and are, just wrestling with your faith, and maybe even in the process of deconstructing or considering, does this really make sense? This is a safe place to come and just hang out. No judgment zone. If you have any questions, you can type it in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. And it's not really a debate space or anything like that. There's a lot of that.
Good call.
And then we have both of our kind of story videos on our YouTube channel, which is the 123 The Exit. So you can go there and check that out.
Or at the exit 123.
Yeah.
Strike that, reverse it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and just realistically, we don't get a ton of people chatting and interacting, which is okay. Well, this is something we like doing together, and it really helps us process things. And it's also out there, even if you don't see it live, we've heard from people that have watch these videos and never, don't do it live, but
Yeah.
have been helped by them. And if again, if you have any questions or anything, feel free to jump in the chat. And so we try to have a topic each week,
It helps.
keep us on track.
Yeah.
So today we're going to talk about, is God good? And again, we're talking about, if you know our backgrounds,
Depends.
I was a evangelical Christian, and very believe the Bible is the authoritative God's word.
And like infallible.
Every word inspired, including the genealogies and everything. Like there's no errors, nothing, no mistakes. Everything in there has meaning, and it all is living and active, and
Mm-hmm.
can judge your heart and all that. Which what happened to me in my process as being a Christian 35 years, I always questioned things right from the beginning that I read in the Bible. Not, I mean, I loved being a Christian because of the experience I had. I thought this is it. But then
Yeah.
I just found great contradiction once I started reading the Bible from what was being presented to the people from the people around me, like from platforms, from what most Christians said and believed. I would find a real stark difference when I read the Bible.
I know. Yeah.
And I did,
Same.
and I was able to get to the point where I could see how, because I went to Bible college, and I remember systematic theology was one of the classes I took, and it showed how taking all these bits and pieces, a systematic theology was built. But I just could not agree with what they were saying, even at that point, because it was making too big of leaps
Yeah.
on too vague of scriptures, and and that's where my belief started to change. And it wasn't an arrogant thing. I wanted it to be true, but it was just I the more and more I got into the basic,
Mm-hmm.
the one text from where all of it comes, I'm like, it's just really impossible for me to believe that's true now.
No, I want to just follow that up with too. I think that this also is a space I've talked to people who watch us that like, e- even if you kind of aren't saying, I don't think you don't have to be an atheist. You don't have to have any kind of label. But even I know some people that have kind of separated from dogmatic Christianity,
Yeah.
where it's like very very fundamental, and are kind of like, okay, now I'm figuring it out for myself. This is also a space for that. But the problem is that, like, especially talking about is God good, is that there's kind of this idea in Christian circles that some things are okay just because God said that they're okay, which is just bizarre because in like if you but I was thinking about this because I was like, well, people don't do that with people really. And then I thought, well, yes, they do, because I've seen time and time again with, like, let's say presidents or political leaders on both sides, where the president will do or say something that I know does not align with certain people's moral compasses, but because it's their candidate and their political leader, they'll be like, well, he said it, so I guess that's okay. And that's kind of how God is
Yeah.
treated too in Christianity. So I think there is something about it being an authoritative figure that if you're bought in, like if you have personal investment in it, like politics, like people I think have a lot of their identity sometimes in politics. And so if their political leader says or does something, like I watched it with on both sides with Trump and Biden, where like obviously both of them had done creepy things with women. Biden had like the babysitter sitting on his lap picture, which was gross. Trump, like everything he does and says about women, like had said whatever he thought his daughter was hot. I, looking back as a very like standing back as a centrist person, thinking both political sides are probably fairly corrupt and kind of just being very in the middle, could say, well, they've both done creepy things with women. And like each person that would say, "Oh, Biden did that; it was so gross," could not say, "Yeah, Trump's been creepy with women." And then same, like the on the other side, it would be Trump's so creepy with women, could not say, "Well, Biden has been too." And so I thought that was really fascinating. It was like, and I think there's some of that with Christianity and with God too, where people will go, "Oh, in the Muslim faith, what's his name? Muhammad had underage wives, and it's so nasty." Honey, have you read the Old Testament? Because God allowed and like all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I think a good place to start this conversation would be like, what is God good? It's like, well, what's your definition of good?
In my take on it, right from the Bible, and I mean it's a big swing, and it took a lot of years to get there. But the only thing that stopped me for a long time was me being intellectually honest with myself.
Mm,
I'm
yeah.
not saying anybody else needs to do that. It's okay. I'm not. If you read that everything in the Bible, and man, it just all makes sense, and the contradictions or the things that really are questionable morally, and all those things that go along with it. Jesus not fulfilling any of the messianic prophecies from the Old Testament. All those things. If you're comfortable with the answers you're getting and that all makes sense to you, awesome. The struggle for me is I wanted them to all make sense, and I sought
Yeah.
out the people I was told to go read and get that information. And holy cow, they were horrible
Yeah.
apologetics, and I just could not believe them. And that's really kind of what happened to me. So I'm coming from this from, I think the Bible was probably, it was most likely men. Well, it certainly was men writing what their understanding of God was. And you can see that so much of their culture, their time frame, just how even from the God is treating women as property, like, you can own slaves, just a lot of the things that an all loving God that really understood the big picture would not put so much of that in there, and then somehow later on say, just kidding, it's
Yeah.
not what I'm really like. I was just, I didn't want to throw too much at him at one time, because I hear that.
I know, which, but like, then if that's too extreme, I think also flooding the whole world's
Yeah.
extreme. And so that's where, like, those are the kind of things that would come up for me when I was like questioning is, well, if it was too much to say, like, hey guys, don't own people's property, but it wasn't too much to like wipe out Sodom and Gomorrah with fire and flood the entire world and drown kids and babies,
Yeah,
and so,
even like
which is
kill all
pretty
the
the
firstborn of
firstborn
Egypt.
Egyptians. Yeah.
Like, because you're talking down to the slaves and everyone, like people who had
Mm,
no
yeah.
guilt, or it didn't have anything to do with it. They were killed. And so again, I get all the apologetics, heard them. They just are not. I can't buy them. It
Yeah.
doesn't rationally make sense. And I wanted them to. Like I honestly, I assumed when someone said, "Hey, go check out FF Bruce and Gleason Archer, and now currently Mike Lacona, Gary Habermas." Those are more studious or scholarly people. But then
Right.
you've got like read Lee Strobel, listen to
Yeah.
uh, the modern apologetic, stand to reason. They just do not cut it for me.
No.
Like, and I wanted them to, and I assumed they would, because so many
Same.
people are reading the same thing and are okay with all this. So I'm assuming there must be good answers, but
That's what
just
I
didn't
thought when I
really.
started really like digging into the historicity of stuff and what actual people, scholars had said, not apologists, but scholars who had studied the text, understood the history, the context, the dating, and all that. I thought, okay, well, this is going to make me get on the straight and narrow. But I did, for a while, I didn't think that I was off of the straight and narrow. I mean, I was doing some things outside of a biblical context, though. Like, I moved in with my boyfriend before we got married because I thought it seems like a good way to see if you're compatible living with someone. But obviously, that is like the big no no in Christianity. I think people would almost rather you like murked somebody than like had premarital sex. Not that that's what we're doing. We've not even held hands or kissed yet. So
I,
don't worry.
I think it's like people are
People
just
are
trying to
so freaked
figure.
out about that, but
Well, people are just trying to figure things out, and like
yeah.
what works and what doesn't. And you can see that in the Bible.
Hmm.
It morality literally
Like
evolves
evolve over
in the
time.
Bible.
Yeah.
And so it's even in the Bible, it's like, yeah, this is okay back then, but not now. But God never changes, blah blah blah. But who knows?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's so when I was trying to frame that as like a basis when I'm talking about is God is good. I don't believe the God of the Bible is real. I
Same.
just don't.
No.
I can't believe that anymore based on the only book we have that talks about him. It just isn't possible in my mind that he could be real. But it's critique. It's kind of like a critique of the religion. And why would you do that? A couple reasons. A lot of people are in the same spot who have thought the same things. They ask really good questions
Mhm.
and obvious questions if you read the Bible. A lot of people don't, or read it in such a way that it's just glossing through those parts and looking for the key things that make you feel really good. And those become the verses that make it to mugs and
Bumper stickers.
lessons and bumper
Yeah.
stickers and Bible studies and that kind of thing. Or they're presented in a very evangelistic way as opposed to like a scholarly way. Um, Lost track.
You were saying like reading the Bible, unless you're looking at just like the feel good verses. Um,
I was going somewhere.
yeah, 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 yeah. Uh, I,
Does most
I
of
was
them.
thinking of, I started thinking about what if you had a company that put some of the verses that, like the bad ones on mugs that were like dash your babies against the rocks, but it was in like the flowery
Yeah,
uh
I think people are
text.
doing that.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
which is you could, but there's always
That's
need for more coffee mugs. So, oh, I know what I was saying. So, I don't, when I'm reading this, it's more of the reason we're doing this, even though I don't believe, is because there was a lot of people that do have the same
yeah.
kind of questions, are wrestling with that, and just saying it's okay. Like, it's okay. Like, if you're in any religion or group where you're not allowed to ask questions or think, that's a huge red flag.
Yes, yeah.
Like, that's a huge red flag because the all powerful, almighty God of the universe obviously must be pretty intelligent if he were that God. And you're not allowed to think about or ask questions or use the mind that you were created with would be really bizarre. But
Yes, yeah, that's problematic.
up until the point, well, don't question. You just, even if it doesn't make sense, you just have to believe. That's a problem. That's how
That's cult
really bad things
101.
happen.
Yeah.
So,
It's just kind of danger. Yeah. I would say that, like, and I think most people, it's interesting, would have that kind of awareness, like, in a lot of different
yeah,
settings or situations. And hey, if you saw something at work that you're like, that seemed kind of abusive, and people were like, no, you're not allowed to talk about that or notice it or comment on it, you go, that doesn't seem right. That doesn't sit right with me. For some reason, though, the primacy of religion and that it is so important to people, of course it is. And it's like an identity and it's your eternity and stuff. I think that anytime, like if you're someone like me that in church would go, hey, it seems like God's condoning slavery, that seems kind of weird, and then it gets, well, he knows what's best, and that was a different, and that doesn't sit right with you, you're not wrong. I think that's what
yeah,
we want to be here and say is, hey, it seems like in the Bible women were property, and God gave the command for
they
David's
were.
wives to be raped to like punish David. That seems wrong. And if you were told like, well, you don't understand,
Yeah.
you're not the one who's wrong here.
We're like everybody's a sinner, so they all just. I mean, I've just heard
Mm.
so many bad
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
don't work,
yeah.
and
Ew, about that story. Like
yeah,
the women technically deserved it because they were women too.
well, everybody deserves.
That's
Everybody's a sinner
gross.
and deserves death. So
Yeah, that deserves the worst thing ever, which is
yeah,
hell. Yeah.
so like that's pretty mild compared to that, but
Ugh.
there. So the question on I thought a really interesting thing for me to think about is since we don't meet God, we don't know him, we don't interact with them. And I get it. People talk and hear from God. I don't think so. But
Yeah.
we don't in a very like consistent, reliable, testable way. No one can demonstrate and can demonstrate that they are hearing from God in a like a demonstrable, consistent, repeatable way that you know this is really it. That's if
Yeah, it doesn't.
so, we would know God exists, right?
Yeah.
It just hasn't happened. Um, so we're just taking this God from in our concept of God from this book that has so many people debating about. Heck, it's why a lot of evangelical Christians think Catholics are not saved. Well,
Yeah.
when we say Christianity is the biggest religion in the world, so how could it be not be true? What makes it the world's largest religion is almost half of those 2.7 billion people are Catholics. So if
That's
they're not
funny.
if you're an evangelical and you don't think they're real Christians, suddenly you drop down and Islam's a little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So you can't go by how many, the number doesn't make it true. What would make it true is if we could demonstrate that God, someone could show us or
Yeah.
he would appear or be with us constantly, then we would all know, and then we could decide if we like them or not.
Yeah.
So,
But all
so
you can go off of, I think, like what you're saying is the book. Like that's literally all we
yeah, that
have
everybody debates
to go
over
off
and
of is this book.
creates denominations over because they can't agree with what it says. And is there
Yeah.
a hell? Is there not a hell? Is it annihilation? Is it just all the things people
What would you say
debate?
would be like your baseline? Like if, because I was thinking about this, if talking about is God good, like then what is your definition of good?
I would think like uh, when it comes to people you've created, there would be not, you would really avoid unnecessary suffering, would be a huge part. Like not suffering because suffering could have purposes and it does, but unnecessary suffering.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, uh, necessary suffering would be getting a shot or a vaccination. It hurts, it causes maybe even some discomfort and changes your body, why it's acclimating your body. But and there's some suffering in that. It's pain involved to get a vaccine. A shot hurts. But if you got the shot and then the doctor punched you in the face, also as you're leaving, that would be completely
So
unnecessary.
surprising.
Yeah, it would be
Yeah,
unnecessary.
yeah.
So like I think that part of it, just how um you know because a lot of times it's said, well, we need that suffering to all suffering has a purpose, but I don't think it does.
Like what? Right, right.
Or or it, and this is really off the topic of God, but or him being good, but if um if God can't accomplish his plan without unnecessary suffering, then that means he's not powerful enough to do it. And
Yep.
he's not all powerful. So
Yeah,
you
that's
can't be all good and all powerful and have this unnecessary suffering piece because, and that's part of what just thinking about that is like, yeah, this all good, all powerful, all knowing God couldn't do those things.
yeah.
You'd have to give up one of them. You'd have to say, yeah, he's not all good because he's allowing some unnecessary suffering. So unnecessary suffering would be, yeah, animals have to die. But if a deer gets stuck in the mud and it takes it 3 days of painful, or a week of starvation for it to die, and it
Oh.
goes through horrible suffering, was that necessary for
I
something?
I see what you're
And
saying.
you could say, well, yes, but then I would say, you mean the all powerful God could not have done something different to eliminate? Maybe he had to die, but did he have to do that suffering, that long?
Right.
And then it's always the answer is, well, God's ways are above ours, which goes to my point. Then none of us can't even tell if he's good.
Yeah.
If his ways are truly above our ways, we're really limited. We're all just guessing off of a book that is very fragmented, and you can create almost any type of God you want out of that.
Oh, he looks different like in every single book
Yeah.
that you go to. I think that's the confusing part too. It is not a unified one voice, and certainly the concept of loving father is like sometimes, but
I think loving to Israel, he really,
yeah, I like
that was
them.
his people. And then he would, do things like when they disobeyed, bring in armies to punish them and put them under siege to the point where mothers ate their children. Like,
Oh, I yeah,
I'm like,
that's a mug for sure.
it really does, like, necessary. Is that necessary? Could you accomplish the same plan without doing all of those unnecessary horrific types of suffering? Not eliminating all suffering, but the unnecessary type.
Right. Right.
And if you can't, it means you're not all powerful.
Or you're not loving. Or if you're choosing not to, you're not all loving.
And if you're choosing not to, you can't be loving unless a person's description of good includes allowing unnecessary suffering.
which is really hard for me because I would.
And I don't think
Oh,
anybody.
well, I think it almost helps to put it in the context of like animals or pets because sometimes we can because they're so like helpless that you can have a little bit more of a
Yeah,
Like
people deserve it. We're
ye-
sinners. Like,
exactly. Okay, but I think about like this last 2 weeks with my little dog having just had a horrific surgery, and like the first few nights, and he's just like groaning in pain and whimpering and stuff. And zoom that out to like, you're a God and this is a dog I've had for 3.5 months, but I would literally die for. And everything for the last 2 weeks has been making him comfortable, and that was necessary suffering. He had to have that surgery to save his life. But like, let's say that I was like, well, also though he's been bad and he disobeyed me, which he did, and so I'm going to drown him. People'd be like, throw you in jail, you
yeah, or
psychopath.
you kick him or something while
Yeah,
he's,
which he,
pull on his stitches to make him quit
yeah,
barking. It'd be
okay.
like
I would hope that I would either get like stoned or thrown in jail if I did that
unnecessary stuff,
to my little.
suffering.
Yeah, that would be unnecessary,
Yep.
right? But then you zoom out and you take God who created people, and then during the time of Noah, he's like, man, they're not doing what I wanted. I'm gonna drown everybody. That is psychotic, like,
Yeah.
including babies and children and animals if you care. But like that is actually, I think unless you say, well, everything God does is good, then it doesn't work. And
You have to say that was good.
and then you'd have to say it's okay if I did it and you did it, because it doesn't work to say, well, it's okay when he does it, but it's wrong for anybody else.
And it's
you can't do that, actually.
Yeah, and if you just believe that he's real, and I'm going to just give the benefit of the doubt to whatever the Bible says because I believe, but that's not what happened to me. I did believe in him, that he was real, until I started reading more of those kind of things and really reading the Bible and thinking like, well, some of these things don't align in with an all good God, an all loving God. And then I had some choices.
Yeah.
Don't think about it anymore. Stop thinking. Just, hey, the devil's trying to get you to what? What's the devil trying to get me to do? Think?
Yeah. He loves doing that.
Because then it's all of a sudden I've got information in front of me and trying to decide, well, how does this make sense? And those thoughts, when they come to you, it's not, I'm not seeking them. It's just you read it and I start thinking that. It's like, well, this is weird. Now, how does this justify? It's got to, because he's all good and he's all loving. So it's got to. So then you start digging in and you hear all the different reasons. And it's like, the end of the day, I don't know. So then it gets me thinking, well, then how do we know? Like, how do you know he's good? And how do you know it's even real? Would a real, all loving, all powerful God really do these type of things?
I know. Like that. And I think
that's what led me to start thinking like, I don't think so.
It led me to think too, like, let's say I found out it was real, or some shred of it was real, and God's like, no, I actually exist as I am presented in the Bible. I don't think that, but I'd be like, dude, you're like totally pro genocide and slavery and hate women. I mean, I would be hard pressed to follow him. That wouldn't be for me. I'd be like, crap, that sucks, but
I think
I'm not into it.
Yeah, I think the majority of what, having been through this like process for 8 years now, and really all of my Christianity, which was 35 years, I was always someone who studied and wanted to know. And I took First Peter, I believe, seriously. I think it's First Peter, where, be prepared to give an explanation to anyone who asks. And I wanted to be able to do that, and assumed you would be able to. So I assumed I would be able to. Yeah, a good, solid, that isn't debatable, or it's like, well, wait, what? There were slaves, like I've heard all that stuff. There was answers to it. Good answers. So did I. Yeah. And it's those kind of things that really made my belief. I think it's really similar to, I hear a really good analogy is when, a kid's little and I shared this before, but not only did I believe in Santa, I loved Santa Claus. Oh. There were some challenges in our home growing up, and this idea of this, it blew my mind. I would think about it every Christmas. I'd get so excited. I'd think, I like, how do I even live in a world where there's this kind man that has these powers, and one day a year makes it special for kids? Like, he doesn't even, like, what? There's this day, he's going to bring presents to me. This is like, This was huge
That's
to
so
me. And then I saw all those other things, as a kid. Rudolph. I mean, I loved Rudolph, and I assumed, of course, every grown up I knew was telling me this was true.
I,
Everybody,
I mean, I wouldn't lie.
and they're taking me to see him and stuff. We used
Oh.
to, and I mean, millions and millions of people do this. I don't have any angst or anything about this because I thought it was amazing at the time, but we would leave out milk and cookies, and someone would lick the bowl because I remember one year, like
Oh God.
it being made a point to say, "Look, you can even see where Rudolph was licking." I mean, I don't know if they fed it to the dog or something, so it looked like that, but
Oh, I hope
I
that grandpa.
believed, and then there
Oh.
was that year that I stayed up as my parents brought the stocking into my bedroom, and I suddenly the belief was gone very quickly. Now I was getting to the point too where I was starting to doubt because I'm starting to think like
Hmm.
kind of like the Bible, like
I
is it
know.
really possible? Like how's it
I
getting around the world? Like time zones,
yeah.
getting inside houses, all this stuff people. But when I saw that
Reading
it's
your
because it was
thoughts.
new information that I could not unsee.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I stopped believing and don't believe that he's actually that person that goes around. It was
I
the
mean, it's
same
a good
thing as I
analogy.
started and I don't equate God, of course, obviously is very serious to people, so I don't want to equate or belittle it like it's a belief in Santa. But the analogy
No,
is
but the
that
analogy is
I
solid.
was told the same thing about God growing up by every adult. The difference is everyone keeps saying it, and they build churches and organizations and denominations, and there's money involved and all this stuff. Like people keep saying this is the
A
real
lot of
deal,
money.
and missionaries and worldwide and Rome and
Yeah.
all the money they have and the power and political power, and there's just so much more that and all the adults I think are sincerely believing it like I did. I mean, I believed I
Mm-hmm.
heard from God, never his voice, it was mine. Jesus, same thing, my thoughts, asking. you know I believed all that stuff.
His voice mysteriously sounded a lot like your inner voice, right?
Yeah,
Same.
I,
Yeah.
I believed all that stuff until I started seeing those things, and that's where
Yeah.
very similar to the Santa Claus thing, I just couldn't unsee them anymore. And um, it wasn't a something I was set out to prove that it was wrong. I set out to prove that it was true
Me too.
because I
Yeah, me
was
too.
told that I would be able to do that.
The
So
facts were not on our side.
yeah, so that whole idea with in the good things about God, is this God good? The way it's presented is again an all powerful, all knowing, all loving, all the omni properties, has this incredible plan for humanity, sees it from the beginning and the end, knows how it's all going to turn out, and has his most beloved creature that's created created in his image before they have knowledge of good and evil, make a mistake, and the result isn't like I would do with my children or adult children
Oh,
or co-workers or anybody I
you wouldn't
know.
light me on fire for
you
all of
would you would
eternity.
work through that, but instead it was like scorched earth. You did this, boom, you're out. From here on out everybody dies, pain in childbirth, toil, you all have sinful nature, you're all gonna, everything you do is gonna be wicked, and then that's the fix.
Yeah, and if you don't do exactly what I want, then you are lit on fire for all of eternity, tortured. I wouldn't even do that to an animal. I know, really weird said. Telling me that God doesn't exist is one thing. Killing Christmas is a step too far, you edgy Reddit atheist fuckwads. And happy Wednesday to you too, really. Thanks
Hey,
for being.
I certainly
I
didn't
feel
mean
so
to kill
bad that
Christmas.
I exploded with laughter in the middle of your very moving
I don't think, hopefully, no child's watching this,
they should
but it
not
could be an
be.
adult. Like, what?
Cinderclose. Well, I think that is like if you say is God good, like to say that something's good, the first thing that kept coming to my mind as I was thinking about this was fair. And like uh there's just too many parts in the Bible that point to a lack of fairness. I think the best example is God not to like beat a dead horse, but God punishing David, King David, for doing something wrong by having David's wife's raped publicly. And there is not a universe in which you could spin that's fair. And if you do,
Oh, there
you
is
need
a
to go have your head
universe.
checked. I mean, that is sick. So that would be like if
Like,
I
it's bizarre that people defend that, but you
and
have
if
to.
you defend it, like get. But
You
there's
have to.
no one that thinks there's no one that if I were like, so if you did something wrong, you think it is the right thing to do to have your wife would be raped to punish you. That's fair. And
Or you should be raped as punishment. What about you? Like,
I mean, it depends on what they did. No, just kidding.
yeah, what
That's
about a
never okay.
person?
Right, exactly. Like
Like,
period.
think any guy, like, oh, it's like, oh, you can't do that to guy. Okay, guy, think of the worst thing. Like, and I don't know what that could be. That could be something different to every single guy. But think of the worst scenario woman that you would want forcefully just, doing
God.
like, or doing anything to you
That you didn't want.
no one would want.
No one
like,
would want that.
No, that's horrific.
Yes.
In like
for anyone.
and that's another example. I don't think a God would do that. I think,
well, if he would, it's not a good God. That's
I don't think it's I don't just don't that's what makes me not think it's true. Like, because it would not be a good God, and it wouldn't be an all-knowing, all-wise, all it just wouldn't be that you would punish, because women wouldn't be in that situation in the first place. You wouldn't have allowed them, because to us it's all like talking about all that women stuff and how stuff was done to them. They were treated like property. They were sold as slaves. They were sold off in marriages, all those things. It's because they were literally property. They weren't thought of as equal humans. And they certainly, sure, there were protections and things that were done for them, but it was unacceptable by today's morality. How in the world does an all-powerful God allow that to be the way it is for the majority of human existence up until the past 200 years? And there's parts of the world where it's still like that because people use the scriptures to back it up.
That's the scary part, is that, and that's why it is important to talk about, is because you can use the scriptures to back it up. And if you're able to just say, well, if God did it, it's good, end of story, then anything is okay and anything is good. But we're gaslit into having to justify these horrors. I think about that single harm I think about that single harm on me as a believer. So yeah, nope, I completely agree. And I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
It is gaslighting. It is absolutely like, here's the absolutely ridiculous part, is that story's in the Bible and they're like, yep, God commanded rape, and that's okay that he did that. That's totally fine. But if you, like, youth group kids, God forbid that you look at porn one time, because that's like the worst thing that you could do. Horrible. You're terrible. You're corrupt. You're lustful, but like totally fine that God, like, you can see my neck veins popping out. That's how, like,
you're fired up.
But like, it's totally fine that God, because he's good, gave this command to have multiple women publicly assaulted. It is gaslighting, and it makes you feel like you're doing something wrong by saying, like, hey, I don't think it's okay to have people raped. And then they make you feel like you're doing, that is gaslighting. I'm glad that you said that, because that
really is.
It really is. And it makes you feel crazy, and it makes you feel like something's wrong with you, that you're seeing this discrepancy, but it's not. So I really appreciate that. Sorry that my neck veins popped out. Hopefully that wasn't triggering to anyone.
I mean, I think it's still, so much of this goes back to the phone, the internet and the phone. Like, prior to that, there were not people educated that had platforms that could talk about the scholarly work, these opposing views, not in a ranting, crazy way, but like, hey, here's what's actually being done in these stories.
Yeah.
Like that story about David, because I listening to one of the persons who started a live stream and does that, and he really, I think, was Deconstruction Zone is the one that really brought that forefront, that whole story.
It's not one that comes up in Sunday school
Of the women being
raped
raped as a punishment to David. Prior to that, like, I don't know how many times I've read the Bible, and that never stood out to me as something like, it was like, oh, God's boy, he sure had to punish them, until someone pointed out to, wait a minute, like, is that right? Because somehow as a Christian, I was able to read the Bible and think about it as It's all correct. It's all, God is good, so nothing in here could be wrong. So I'm looking at, first of all, through that presumption, that presupposition that that's the lens I'm reading it through. And then looking at it, like I never thought past that story much more than this is about David and Bathsheba and God punishing them.
Yep.
Like somehow we just overlook that these are like women, someone's daughters, someone's sisters, some like human beings that were forcefully, like this most awful thing that can be happen to a person that is, we just in today's culture, like, like who are the two influencers that are right now, they fled the country and they're indicted
The
again, the
Tates?
yeah,
Yeah.
like they're vilified, but
Yeah.
here it's being done as punishment and completely overlooked or never brought up. And I was guilty of that too as a Christian for all that time. It was just,
Same.
and
Yeah.
and I would
Same.
say as I was studying the Bible, I would look at the ones that people were bringing up, the objections, and honestly, that one wasn't even brought up because
No. No one wanted
all
to
the
touch.
books I was reading and stuff, that you'd never even heard of that one. But now in the internet age, so I do listen to these live streams and people calling in and defending that. It is just
That's the hard part.
chilling,
Mm-hmm.
the intellect that's used to. But I brought this up as I was thinking. I've got another screen over here. As I was thinking about this whole thing, I just, is God good? And I just did some search, and Stand to Reason is a very big apologetic evangelical network, and they have all their stable of apologists that are just like, they're apologists. It's not scholarly.
It's not.
But like,
Yeah.
so
That
this
was
one,
the only
because
thing I wanted.
because it does say in Isaiah 45:7 that uh, God uh, God did create evil, and that was a King James version. So a lot of people will use that. Well, God created evil. Well, this is what I mean. The answers that just never work for me. Um, Alan Schleman, who goes on and writes this rebuttal to how that just can't be true. And you could check it out. I can put the link on our site and you can check this article out. But he summarizes it by this: God didn't bring evil into existence, it's the result of sin in our fallen world. Like, those are the kind of answers that I would get that are just like, okay, we're not even thinking here.
No, because then you.
People could not create evil. It's not possible. They could have done something that God chose as a punishment, that evil would be brought into the world. But people couldn't create Satan. People couldn't create the existence of evil. That had to be something that was done. We don't have the power to create or not create those things. We just don't,
Not
as people.
personally, no.
Those were put into this world that we're all born into by someone who created all the parameters, all the dynamics of what would happen, couldn't happen. Eh, ultimately, even if people can cause evil, that evil and the idea of it and the concept of it had to be created by someone greater than us. And it had to be put in play, or we're more powerful than God.
Or and he didn't have the ability to keep evil
Yeah.
from entering. But it all, like the next thing says that God, however, does bring instances of calamity on people. In fact, it's his prerogative to do so. Oh, Matt said, my first month of following Deconstruction Zone, my jaw was on the floor. Every live stream, all the things I had missed, even as a highly trained disciple maker in the church. Oh gosh, join the club. Yeah. Yeah, same. And it was interesting because it's written in pretty plain text in the Bible. And I was someone who had read it multiple times, like those kind of stories. Or even like the one about dashing babies against rocks, or the cannibalizing, like God punished people by having them cannibalize their children as like a generational punishment, not even for something those people had done. And I'm going like, what was I reading? Because I feel like this would have stood out to me. But I think in some of those books, they're so boring and they're so drawn out that you're sort of glazed over and you're reading it just to like check off, oh, I read Leviticus.
In Christianity, for the most part, really does avoid the Old Testament and specific parts of it because there is so much conflict there. And that's really interesting you say that, Matt. Like when I heard DZ, I was so relieved because I
Yeah.
thought I was not, because I mean, I had thought not some of those key things that he had pointed out, but just in general for so long, I'm like, I always felt so alone in church because I'm like, am I the only one that sees this stuff
Yep.
when I read it and feels this way and thinks this way? Because I would ask about it and get the typical shutdowns like, got to have faith. God's ways are bigger than ours. We're not meant to know everything, all those things. And it's like,
Yeah.
but we're given minds and to think, and then we're just supposed to not see or shut our mind off, which to me is always so scary in any scenario, let alone a religious setting when you're just supposed to not to ask or think.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
But that really, so I mean, in this, I didn't even like, I pulled up one thing and I'm just reading this article and I'm like, that's the challenge that I always felt with today's apologetics. I knew the apologetics, but I couldn't use them
Yeah.
because I was like, I can't. It's just today. Like, that's what I do for a living. I do sell a product. That's what I've always done is I sell, but I've never considered myself a salesman because I don't think you should talk people, trick people,
Nope.
any of that. I just believe in what I offer and I know all about it and I believe it's a really good solution and I can stand behind it. And if someone can say yes or no and I'm not offended, I thought that's what it would be like when I dug into Christianity. I would just have those answers and I would
The
just
same.
know
That's
like
exactly, yeah, same.
it's not there are no arguments because this is God and it's the Bible and it's his word and it's the inspired word. It's how we know all this is true. I just assumed there would be no
Well, and
arguments.
all the
Like here
people,
just is the case. And instead they were all like, wah, wah,
well, all
wah.
the people like above you too, at least for me, all leaders and pastors and youth are like, oh, if you really dig in and you really read it and you really get in there, you, it's so obvious, like you have no choice that it's true. And then you get in there and you're like, a donkey's talking now. Like it's just really, it's not that cut and dried. And then when you actually start going back through, like, when you look at the scholarly context and like the actual historicity of the Bible and the timeline, how
Yeah.
it falls into place in the world with other archaeological texts and what things were actually like taken out of the Bible because people thought, oh,
I
that's not
I
going to
mean,
overrule. It's not just like you're reading something and going, well, that makes sense. Yeah,
yeah.
it's
I
not.
remember them being really down on the NIV when it first came
Oh
out. And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
but I wanted a study Bible and I wanted something easier to read in today's language. And at the time, I mean, I think it's a dynamic equivalent, is what it's called. It's not,
Mm.
so it may not be the best translation, but it had study notes, which I was always so interested in, like the factual part of it. How do we know? How do we know? And, that's the first time I saw the end of Mark. It's like, I'm reading the
Oh
Mark and
yeah.
it's like this long ending was not in the earliest manuscripts we have. It was added at a later time. I'm like, what?
Uh-oh.
And you're reading in the prologues to each book. We don't know necessarily who wrote these. What?
Hmm.
I was told this is Matthew, Mark, Luke, and
I
John, and
know, I know.
and
And
it's
just say that.
those kind of things that I was like, God, if someone had just told me that and said this is a faith where it's not here to punch holes in it. There's stuff like, yeah, we don't have all the answers, but it's a faith. You got to take this all on faith. It would have got me so much further because I said, well,
Such a good point.
then I want to place my faith in something that doesn't have negative crap or stuff that's harmful to people. So I'd make sure that wasn't in there. And if that wasn't in there, cool. It's a
Yep.
faith, it's not something, but I wasn't taught that. And even to the Bible college I went to, I was taught, it's all inerrant. Um, every word God breathed down to the punctuation marks, and
Yes.
you just can't question it.
You know, something I was thinking of in the context of is God good? And kind of off topic, but not really, but how it can actually affect like real world people is I just watched that documentary on Netflix, Into the Manosphere, that I was telling you about.
Oh yeah,
And
I haven't seen it yet,
it's
but I'll
so
check it.
fascinating. I thought I was going to watch it and it was going to make me super angry. And if you guys know of this, say in the chat because it's so fascinating. If
The
you've seen it or not,
Manosphere.
Into the Manosphere. And the Manosphere is, as I'm watching it, I was like, oh, these are just like prosperity gospel biblical dudes because they were allowed to have like multiple women that they were sleeping with. They called it one-sided monogamy, but she wasn't supposed to. And it was it's all like highly traditional. The woman wants to be taken care of. She wants to be provided for. She's not supposed to work. She's not supposed to be bringing in the money or anything. And like the way they talked about women was how the Bible talks about women. But it was so fascinating to me because I'm like, oh, this is so sad. And but like to a guy, when they actually interviewed them and like pushed them on, so you really like think that she's cool with this, with you going out, going on dates with other, you could see the cracks. And then the one dude, when his girlfriend actually left him, was sad. And you could see it. Like, okay, and they all had troubled backgrounds, abusive parents, absent dads, like whatever. And so I ended up feeling really bad for these guys. But it was just interesting because the way that they were living, their like prosperity, name it, claim it type stuff, and the way that they treated and talked about women, I'm like, that is actually more in line with biblical stuff than now. Yeah. Than like the way that a modern person would treat a significant other as an equal. And that was what I thought was freaky. It was like, oh no, they're actually doing it way more the biblical way than.
That is wild.
Isn't that freaky? Yeah.
One of the things that that really gets me riled up is this whole idea of good is something you'll hear often when you're talking about good. Well, it's like, well, if there isn't an almighty, all-powerful God who laid down the moral foundation that we all know what good is, you have no right or leg to stand on to say anything is good. As a matter of fact, you are just chemicals and bouncing around, molecules and what is good. What it brings up, I think that is the worst argument I have ever heard. And I don't even know how someone's seriously saying that. So there are some viable options or possibilities. There really isn't a God. It is possible. And this is all natural. And there really is, everything is natural. And we have evolved to this point. I know there's parts that are hard to believe about all that. But it is possible. It is possible because one thing we know for sure is that we see the natural stuff all around and we are here.
And we're here.
And one thing no one's ever proven is that a God is here. So it could be that it really is all natural and that so even if it is random how evolution got us to this point, and the bottom line is people have been being born for a long time with being sentient. Mm-hmm. They have consciousness. They can see the world around them. They can, because of the things in their brain that we can now show that are parts of the brain, not something spiritual that's outside of it. We can have empathy for other people, and that's a survival technique because if we have empathy for those around and we can understand their pain and their hurt and their need for food and shelter, we know they can understand that for ours. We can group together and we can build units that have us a better chance to survive, and we build tribes and nations and all that. Mm-hmm. If all of that is happening because of chemical things in our brains, it still is what's happening and what we have. Yeah. And it's valuable and meaningful and pretty
I don't know why that would make it
pretty
less
dang cool or amazing that we get to do this.
Yes.
And the fact that it's only here for a short time is the other thing I hear. Like, if this is only 80 years, what's the point? And my thought always is, okay, so are you saying if you really found out tomorrow God isn't real and it is all natural, are you just going to like rip off all your clothes, quit your job, go start stabbing people and raping people, go to the banks and start stealing people? I mean, really? Is this belief in God really what's keeping you from doing that?
That's not what you did.
Did you know
such a good point.
Did you know there are the same amount of people, if you take away the Catholics, because when I was evangelical, I mean, the Catholics and Protestants didn't think, or the Protestants and evangelicals a lot did not think the Catholics were Christians.
No. Yeah.
Because they were pagans and they worshiped idols and prayed to saints and all that. If you take the Catholics out of it, did you know worldwide right now, agnostic or non-affiliated with religion or atheistic is the exact same number as
Nuh-uh.
Christians. And we're not the only one. We're not the ones going out and doing all the horrible stuff. It's pretty much equal among all the religions and
Right.
non-religions.
People are people, I think is the great big
So there
takeaway.
is evidence and actual proof today that 1.7 billion non-religious affiliated people live morally because they thought based on what they see around them, what they feel pain, and they don't want that pain, so they don't want to cause it to other people, and they form laws to minimize all that. It's proven today in the world that uh, without these objective morals from on high, people do figure them out.
That's a great point. That
And,
is actually
and
demonstrable.
it's demonstrable. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the amazing things is we've all pretty much landed that slavery is bad, but when we had objective morals from on high, the majority of mankind based on God, slavery was okay.
Yep.
So I think we can even make better morals when we think and look at and evaluate the world around us using our minds and empathy in how we interact with others
Yes.
and what we want this world to be using our minds.
That gave me goosebumps.
Shush.
Oh no,
Wait,
it's
we
true.
got. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, realizing non-egalitarians, the misogynists, are actually the ones doing right according to the Bible is wild. That's what struck me about watching that documentary was that literally they were treating women the way that the Bible would have you treat women, and to most people it was so horrific and disgusting. And they kept saying in the documentary that there was this blend of it being like bizarrely old traditional values, but also that these guys were just sleeping around with basically whoever they wanted. And the one guy was what I noticed was like if the main wife or girlfriend was off screen, they would talk such a big game and be like, "Oh, dude, yeah, she packs me condoms when I go on work trips. She's totally down with it." And as soon
Oh,
as
my God.
I know, and then as soon as the wife or girlfriend was on screen, she'd be like, I don't know how I feel about it. He's like, no, baby, we talked about this. And I kid you not, the one guy was like being filmed and he was with his mom before, like, I don't know that he knew he was being filmed. This was Sneeko. And or no, it was HS Tiki Taki was who it was. Because they're
Well, I
all
mean, Sneeko sounds like someone you put a lot of trust.
I know, and they're all dumb, and he's like a 26-year-old like dumb, and you're like,
Sneeko.
oh my god, I just was like, honey, you need like a warm bottle and to be burped and just go sleep off this days for a while, but. And he's with his mom. This was Tiki Talkie, and he's being filmed. And his mom's like, clean up that floor there. Like, there's gonna be cameras in here. He's like, okay, no, mommy, I didn't want that. And like calls her mummy because he's British and you can just see
Oh,
the facade. You're like, okay, this is a real person who's probably doing this for like reasons that can't be good
yeah.
one way or the other. But even so, it was weird that I'm like, yeah, this is like the biblical way that you would talk about women and treat them like property, like they're there to clean your house, have your kids, and then you can basically treat them
Yeah.
however you want, have multiple wives. And I'm just like one Christian, like fundamentalist Christian, get in there and criticize them. Be like, no, this is literally what your God specifies in the Bible, unfortunately. And I wouldn't call that good. Not that
Nice.
any Christian I ever knew was actually doing that, but I think that's the problem is that when you get in and dissect what the text is actually saying, it is okay to treat women that way. It is.
Yeah.
That's what's really scary.
And it is never too far. You know, you're one. It's always like one vision from God,
I
and it's
know.
let's go. Like the thinking that none of this stuff would be reestablished or reinstituted, especially when the Bible says God's law is meant to last forever, and Jesus
Yeah.
reaffirmed that he didn't come to abolish it, to fulfill it, which means to obey it, and that none of it would change or fade away until heaven and earth fade away.
Yeah.
And then all the Old Testament messianic prophecies that talk about the new heaven and earth, that that law will be reinstituted.
Yeah.
All the Old Testament law and all those laws will be put back into place. So it wasn't meant for something to disappear. The fact that no one's doing it today, all it takes is the right scenario, the right person that's that this is God's word, because when you add God into something, it adds a whole extra power or a whole extra level of you can't question this, and if you do,
yeah. And God, according to the Bible, is like, it's fine to kill babies. It's fine to treat animals like, and that's a whole, like, I don't think anyone else could be interested in this. Let me know in the chat if you would. I think we could do I could do like 5 hours on this, but how the Bible really inspired like treating animals like they're not living things, but like their property, and like we have dominion over them. Well, that inspired that entire documentary, Dominion. And
oh yeah, that was
like
so good.
the treatment of animals. But according to the Bible, it's okay to treat, like, literally God was fine with baby lambs being symbolically killed. This was atoning for your sin. He did not have to set it up that way. Or like the most innocent, harmless. And I know that's not that big a deal in the grand scheme of him killing babies and raping women and all the things
But
he did.
like,
but it is like an innocent, sentient, living creature.
It's because that's what all the gods of that day were doing.
That's
like,
all.
That's every god, and then because they thought there was lifeblood, something magical in the blood of animals, and it's like,
oh my God! And now we're trying to stop people from.
I don't even know how I look back and I'm like, what I did not like it. It didn't feel right, but it's like it's God, and maybe they didn't know back then. But the challenge for me with all of that is, if you've got a God that's not going to just step in and do what's right because some people might not like it or listen. Well, we're all sinful anyway, and we don't listen. So why would that ever stop anything, right?
Oh, such a good point.
That would never stop you from saying, no, this is really what I want.
Yeah.
My creatures are beautiful and amazing. We're not killing animals, and there's no magic or something special in blood. It's like,
no, instead God was like, let me pick the smallest, fuzziest, most harmless, most helpless, innocent of all creatures. That's what I want you to publicly kill. Weird, man. That's weird. And that always bothered me in the Bible, because I've always been like an animal lover. And I remember reading that and being like, that's not I just don't. I guess I feel like a all-powerful, loving, knowing God of the universe could find some other way to get a point across, even if it would just be like making people understand his point, because he could have done that. Instead of like, no, you got to kill innocent things.
Yeah.
I just don't think that's not ever good.
True. Innocent things, killing innocent things is not good. Yeah. I agree.
There's like one ant living in my house, one ant. And I was following it around. You saw it. It's my one. He's like a big black
I was like,
ant.
that is really an ant that I keep seeing.
His name's Anterton. And I was following him around with the vacuum the other day. And I'm like, I should just sweep it up. And I could not do it, because I'm like, it's not his fault that he wound up in here. And I'm bigger and I'm stronger. And I'm the only one between the two of us that has the ability to kill it or not kill it. Why would I just kill something innocent that is alive just because it's somewhere I don't want it to be? I couldn't do it. So then it's like, am I better than God? Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
This is why women were not allowed to talk. Because like, look, they start saying things like that and thinking, and holy cow.
I've even voted once or twice.
It gets bad. It gets really bad.
Women aren't allowed to talk.
That
was hilarious.
So and I don't know if we mentioned it. We're father and daughter.
Oh yeah, I don't know if we said that this time, but we are. Guess which one's which.
So that's I think that's pretty much about wrapping it up.
I think so too, because I'm starving. But we'll be back next week, because it'll be like, I think the night before I leave for my trip overseas.
Yeah. Oh, you'll still do it that night?
Yeah, because let me look. I think it is.
Even if not, I can do a solo. They're never as fun with that.
Doing it.
We could beam you in.
Okay, you might have to beam me in, because I think I drop off Gruber at a kennel, and then
awesome.
At a really nice, expensive freaking dog resort, guys.
Well, thank you guys for being here, and really appreciate it.
I know, that was fun. Thank you so much for being in the chat, you guys.
Thanks so much.
Matt, and really, we love having chat interaction. You can tell.
That's super cool.
Like, the second there's anything in the chat, we're like, no, people are talking to us.
Yeah.
So
And
thank
hey,
you for being
just
here.
have a great week, and we'll see you next week.
Yay!
Take
See you
care.
next week.